Hello, everyone. I'm so honored today to have Cindy Olson as a guest. How are you, Cindy?
I am doing very well.
I'm so happy that you are here and we finally, like fixed a moment and did this podcast. So tell us more about yourself, what you do, your journey, very quickly, and your
Mhm.
passions. Yeah.
Well, I've had an interesting journey in life. I have a genetic disorder that I didn't really tell anybody about for many, many years. And what I found was I started getting migraines when I was 7. And then when I was finally diagnosed with CMT, that's basically Chote Marie Tooth, 3 French guys who found this. I was told that I'd be in a wheelchair and then I would die shortly
Mhm.
after. And I had relatives who believed them. And I didn't. I said, there's got to be a better way. And I lived in Connecticut, but I was able to go to New York City. And believe it or not, I saw my first guru. And he was literally on a golden throne and he had a broken arm. And I said, wow, how is this guy dealing with like a broken arm as he's like giving out pearls of wisdom?
Yeah.
And I just found it really fascinating because I was just told, you take a painkiller and then you go home and suffer and then you die.
Mhm.
Um, but I went over to the guru and said, hey, listen, there's a hospital. I can take you over there. Really, they can fix up
Wow.
broken arm is not that hard. And he said, I it doesn't bother me because I meditate. I've meditated for the last 30 years. And on one hand, as an American, I was like, what? 30 years? I got to do something for 30 years before it's going to work? And then on the other hand, I said, oh my goodness, this guy is living with pain. How is
Yeah.
he doing that?
Yeah.
So that really started me on a journey
Hmm.
to find out how I could deal with it. And by the time I was 24, I was off all my painkillers, which I don't suggest for people to do. If you're on a lot of prescription medication, don't get off them all at once. Not a good idea.
Hmm.
Now I wean people off of them.
Yeah.
But what I found was I just wanted to go on with my life and said, I'll research and figure out. And I was a guinea pig, but it was okay to be a guinea pig because I was getting paid for it.
Hmm.
So I went and got paid in a support group. I got paid by doing early biofeedback, where it was like a room with a computer and they plugged me up and down, 600 different points. And it wasn't that fun, but I learned a lot about myself and I got paid well for 9 months. So I really learned how to process pain.
Hmm.
And then I married an artist and lived in New York City. So I need to make money. So I basically just worked on Wall Street. And then 9/11 happened. And I basically said, oh, I can't go back to burning. Like people don't realize it was burning for like a year. So I basically started to deal with the fact that I love the earth and it had always been gardening and, basically volunteering various places, starting community gardens, all sorts of things. So I said, I am going to work in sustainability. I'm going to heal the earth. Well, guess what? People in DC were so enamored of their own power and their own how should I put it, their own journey for money,
Mhm.
that they were not in the least bit interested in hearing about climate change or any of the other things that I really thought were important. So I realized they need to heal themselves.
Mm.
So I said, what do I do that's really different? And then it just kind of hit me. Oh my goodness, I'm like walking around and doing all these things that other people are in chronic pain about and like are bedbound and
Yeah.
real trouble. So then I said, hey, maybe I ought to figure out how I do it. And 10,000 or more pages later, I figured it out
Amazing.
with the help of someone to do some scientific translation.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've researched from 1 to 3 hours a day for my entire adult life. Now it's a lot easier because I can do it from my home computer. But I used to have to go to libraries, but I didn't mind that at all.
Yeah. And what about your relation with the plants, like
Oh my
and
goodness.
essential oils? Here we go. Yeah.
You know, plants, I think, were my savior right from the beginning. I didn't realize it. I have always been connected to plants.
Mm-hmm.
I started transplanting them when I was 2-3 years old. And I've been growing soil, composting, in other words, different styles and different ways for my entire life, no matter where I lived. And I basically have eaten real plants.
Mm.
I graze every morning.
Wow.
And, you know, forage for wild plants. And, you know, I've gotten herbalists and everything. When I was in college, I not only studied economics, but I also studied botany. So I had the scientific basis for it too. And, you know, did herbal certifications and all that. But basically, I have been studying plants and fungi and bacteria and viruses my entire life.
Wow.
And I understood that the microbiome existed way before other people really started researching it.
Yeah.
And that is one of the keys to the way that I process pain. Because I have, you know, always added things and always eaten soil and other things like that. Now, I'm not saying you should go out and do that.
Yeah.
And if you can identify plants, especially, you know, mushrooms or things like that, you know, don't go out and do it by yourself. You know, learn something about it. And I'll tell you, I've been learning about this my entire life. And I can say, you know, 50 years later, I am still learning every day.
Definitely. And, you know, I discovered essential oils 10 years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
And my ex-girlfriend gave me a bunch of little, you know, like those like lavender, lychee citronné, all those like, and I was like discovering, oh, wow, like I feel like I'm in a jungle. Oh, I feel like I'm in a forest. I feel like and they were so powerful. I just discovered like, how can I say, a new dimension.
Yes.
So you know, I'm a musician. I compose music. So I have inspiration. I play piano, but like those essential oils took me somewhere else. So tell us more about like your relation with essential oil, because we talked already before, but.
Well, what's fascinating is plants have all sorts of ways to really heal us. And one of the ways that they do that is through their scent. Scent is something that lets us know if something's dangerous or something is wonderful, right? I actually started to get rid of pain when I was very young by smelling cinnamon in coffee cake that was, you know, basically wafting up to my room when I had a headache. And then I discovered that I had some lavender and I had some rosemary that I was growing. And when I combined them through my hands, got the oil on me, this is before I read anything about it, I felt better. I would just smell my hand. And that just went to my unconscious brain. It wasn't anything logical.
Yeah.
It immediately said, wow, you're healing, right? And I had an accident with my teeth and I used basically clove oil. Now that, you know, hurt some, but it also was very healing to my gums.
Yeah. It's anesthesia, right? It helps remove pain.
So very young, I started to understand different types of spices and herbs and things like that from the earth really had different effects on us. So I said, aha. So it's not just that you can use oil, but that really helps because you can, usually essential oils, you can put on your very various trigger points by your
Oh, wow.
ears,
Okay.
for example, and or you can put it onto a cloth and carry it around so you get touch. So
Mm.
what I found is I add music because I'm very affected by music,
Yes.
and I use scent and I use touch at the same time.
Mm.
And if you add a little activity to that,
Mm.
wow,
Yes.
it's like the more types of ways that you can calm your body and get it into the parasympathetic parasympathetic nervous system, instead of, going into that stress response all the time, you're going to heal.
Exactly. And it's boosting the vibration, actually. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it affects your brain waves and everything like that. You're
Yeah.
absolutely right about that. It changes the frequencies of things.
And what about the Cindy, the writer, Cindy, who help other writers also to publish their books? And so tell me more about it.
My journey for writing a book. See, I originally thought when I was very young that I was going to write stories, because I told myself stories, and that was really helpful because it was a very good distraction. I was one of those little ferocious, because as I said, I went to the library a lot. But it ended up that, I was very busy in life.
Mm.
And I said, no one's really going to want to hear about, the sock tales or something like that. But I could help, as I said, with, basically helping people live pain-free at last.
Mm.
So in order to write that, I wrote thousands of pages.
Mm.
And I said, okay, well, I got to figure out how to. So I went to course after course. I'm somebody who tries to learn too much about something before I do it.
Yeah.
Um, so I figured out ways to, understand the process of writing a book and writing from your soul and dealing with your trauma. Everyone has things that have happened to them.
Mm.
So part of dealing with pain is dealing with your past and your stress responses.
Yeah.
And that comes from the really traumatic events that happened in your life early on, maybe, or things that acutely happened to you. So a lot of times it's hard to actually write your own story.
Mm.
It's much easier if you have a sympathetic ear.
Mm. Like a mirror.
Right. To listen to your story. And then I help people go through that process so that they're okay
Awesome.
with talking about things.
Yeah.
So it's not so fresh and hurtful to them. So it's a healing process.
Right. And you told me something, Cindy, that sometimes trauma will show up like 10 years later.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And in fact, generational trauma, they're now finding out by all the work they've done with Holocaust victims and their children and their grandchildren and now their great-grandchildren.
Mm.
The great-grandchildren are being affected by it.
Mm.
So think about all the war-torn areas. I mean, you grew up in Lebanon.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I know.
Dealt with so much. And yeah, you can put that down. It's in your unconscious, and you might not have to deal with it right away. Only comes up what we need to deal with at the time.
Mm. Mm.
So you're going to be processing all the things that happened to you and likely your ancestors for your entire life, but you don't have to do it all at once. It does not overwhelm you. And that is the beauty of how our biochemistry and how our neural pathways are set up.
Yeah. In France, I bought to my clients like a little block note, and during the session, I was telling them to write stuff. Because for me, as a human being, when we use a pen and we write on a paper, it's like engagement. It's also like repairing and fine-tuning and giving direction to our brain, because we are kinesthetic and visual. So using a pen and a paper, I totally agree with you, is very helpful to release trauma. And so, I'm a Civil War survivor. When I moved to France, I have all those memories. And the music helped me a lot to fix my brain, and music became like oxygen to my brain and to my self. So writing, I totally agree, and probably soon we will collaborate. Who knows?
And literally, because I know you also sing, and that actually brings oxygen into you. So the creative abilities that you have been incredibly healing.
Yeah.
One of the ways that people deal with any kind of trauma that's happened to them is painting, drawing, singing,
Right.
playing instruments, being involved. And then when you do it with other people, and then you can, add a little movement when you play the guitar, right? You're moving your arm. And then you're singing your own words. You're giving voice to the emotions that you have. Why do we love the blues? Why do we love soul music?
You're right. You're right.
Because that brings it up. All the folk musics of every culture. You hear what their ancestors have gone through.
Exactly. 3 years ago, a doctor from San Diego wrote me on my website. At that time, I was in France. I had my healing center, using the music, the hypnotherapy, all those stuff. And 6 months later, I drove to San Diego and I met with that doctor. And he told me, so tell me, what do you use for depression to help people? And I told him, creativity is the key. Like if you put somebody creating, like drawing, playing, singing, dancing, moving, as you mentioned, or even like gardening, because like it will help us, to root ourselves, right? It's like the person it will be auto healing. So people will not need like any therapy or any, because they are fixing. I like to fix stuff by myself. I did the auto therapy on myself.
Yes.
So writing is an auto therapy, like.
And you can even write if you write. They call it automatic writing.
Yes.
You don't even know what you're actually putting down.
Yeah, exactly.
But your body knows, and it might be hard to read afterwards, but on some level that doesn't really matter.
Yeah, beautiful.
Think about like the Scream, right, by Edward Munch. He epitomized his horror about what had happened in his family system.
Gotcha.
Right? Can you imagine if Hitler had actually been allowed to be the artist he wanted to be?
Yeah, you're right. This is a good point.
That might have been a better thing.
Exactly.
Yeah,
he was frustrated.
Yes.
By not being a painter, I think.
Right. He wanted to go to art school very badly and they wouldn't let him in.
Yeah, wow.
Creativity, everyone has it.
That's it.
Right?
That's it.
And we are stymied in our cultures around the world. And we have to bring that back.
Exactly, because we are free human beings.
Absolutely.
Like art is free, music is freedom, painting the colors is very joyful. So anything that help us to vibrate, is super welcome, especially now. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Cindy, I hope that we will have more time together and definitely we'll reconnect maybe for more insights. It's always a pleasure to hear you and to see you.
It's wonderful to see you and to think about your great life journey that I want to learn so much more about. And I'm sure that everyone listening to this is going to want to know more about how you had to deal with such a horrific situation that was not just 100 years in the making, but 1,000 years or more in the making.
Yes. Maybe it will be soon on paper. Who knows?
Yes, there you go.
Thank you so much for your time. I know you are a busy woman and we will keep the contact, definitely. Okay.
As you are.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye-bye.
Bye.